Okay. All right, so that's us. We are. Oh, you're gonna give me a clicker too.
I'm getting it. There we go. Oh, there you
Beautiful,
go.
beautiful. Thank you. All right, so we're with Non-Monogamy Academy. We started that. And this is our course on understanding jealousy. This is a pared down course from what we offer online. We offer a lot more skills online than what you're going to get here because we don't have enough time here to go through everything. I'm Karyn Wittmeyer. LMHC means that I'm just a licensed therapist. CST means I'm an ASEC certified sex therapist. And I'm currently getting my PhD in clinical sexology. I'm doing my dissertation on new relationship energy. So you'll probably get like email notices, or not email notices, but Facebook notices at some point that I'm recruiting people to talk to. And I would love to be able to talk to everyone I can about that. And so I will eventually release a book on that as well. I've been non-monogamous for well over a decade. I don't remember how many years anymore. I'm getting to that age. I'm demisexual. I consider myself barely cis, some days more than others. And I'm also a huge science nerd.
And I'm Carrie, and we do know that Karyn and Carrie is hilarious.
We grew up near each other too. And
Did not know
Kansas City.
And our professors in grad school where we met got us confused all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm an LMHC. I'm also a licensed mental health clinician or counselor. And I'm a sex therapist. I am not a certified sex therapist. I'm currently working on my certification. And that just means it's a credentialing body that helps people develop their skills around in sex therapy, so they actually know that they're meeting a certain standard. My pronouns are they, she. Karyn and I are in private practice together. We founded it during grad school, while I was still in grad school. And then I work a lot with the intersection of non-monogamy, kink, disability, and neurodiversity. That's kind of where most of my clients land in some way. I'm also part of the non-monogamy research community, though not nearly as much as Karyn is. And some of my identities, I'm non-monogamous, have been for pretty much my entire adult life. I'm queer, I'm non-binary, I'm Jewish, I am disabled, I'm also neurodiverse, I'm pansexual, I collect plants, my house is kind of dangerous. And I also collect hobbies. I have ADHD. ADHD manifests as knowledge. Knowledge manifests as hobbies. Hobbies manifest as things. So, this is our agenda. Why are we doing this? We're going to get to that in a minute. Our process: differentiating jealousy and envy, identifying the origins of your jealousy, understanding jealous behaviors, identifying jealous behaviors, and then skill building. So this is a QR code to access slides. This is not slides, worksheets, my bad. I was very tired when I made this slide. This is a QR code to access worksheets that are built around this presentation. They are to help you understand and build insight into your jealousy and into the jealous behaviors you engage in. A lot of our work comes down to how do you build insight and how to with that once you have it. So, So now we know that we're counselors. We specialize in working with non-monogamy, but we want to talk a little bit about why we started Non-Monogamy Academy. We realized that many of our clients were entering into monogamy, and they were running into the same tripping hazards over and over and over again. And maybe they did some research, they read, they figured out some of the things, but they hadn't really built a lot of insight into why they were engaging in this relationship style, what they wanted out of it, what they were scared of, things like that. So they hadn't begun to dismantle their mononormative scripts yet. And or to build the insight or the skills to communicate well with others, to what they could offer or what they were seeking even. So we wanted to provide a resource for people to do some of this preliminary work, to avoid some of those tripping hazards, some of those pitfalls, and as well to then make the choice to go to therapy to work on specific things, not to do the basic psycho ed that a lot of therapists end up doing when people come in and say, hey, we're looking at opening up our relationship. So that's why we started Non-Monogamy Academy with our 101 series. This is part of our 101 series, and we have 5 other classes as part of that. If you go to our website, non-monogamyacademy.com, you can look at the class series and see what you think about it. You can also take the class series as a series or as individual classes. So what is our process that we built? Because this is actually really important to us. First, this first step is to gain knowledge. You don't know what you don't know. So you figure out, oh shit, I don't know that. The second step is to gain insight. That's learning to identify what you think, what you feel, what you need, what you want. And then you start to gain skills. This is like filling your toolbox. New things that work for different situations that you may not have faced before, or a new tool for a problem that you've been struggling with for a while. Finally, you practice the skills. This is how you learn to communicate about the insight that you're building. Practice is hard, takes time. You're going to screw it up. It's how you repair those. That's really where things start to change for you. And that's part of learning new things, especially when they involve other people or other peoples who have their own wants, needs, desires, things like that, and feelings and fears. So these wedges show up in all of our class slides. They also show up in the worksheets that we provide, and they tell you what that worksheet's purpose is. So we want you to understand why you're doing that work while you're doing it. So now we're going to talk about jealousy and envy. Monogamous scripts tell us that we own someone in a way. We're entitled to their time, their attention, their energy, their body, their emotions, etc. And if they offer those to someone else, well, that's a problem. Often these feelings of ownership manifest as jealousy, which comes out in behaviors. But what is jealousy, and what other things might be happening? We make a distinction between jealousy and envy to help with communication and understanding. I do better with notes. So jealousy. Jealousy is a feeling of insecurity that usually involves a rivalry with someone else, or fear that something will be taken away from you by someone else. The key word here is insecurity. Is this insecurity about you? Is it about your partner? Is it about your relationship? So let's distinguish that from envy, which also happens a lot. Envy is a feeling of longing for something that you want that you can't have in that moment, or maybe at all even. The key word is longing. You may feel some insecurity that you don't have the thing, but you don't necessarily feel threatened that someone else does have it. It's the difference between I don't want you to do that with anyone but me, or just me, and I also want to be able to do that with you. Working to determine if you're feeling jealous or feeling envy can help give you the language to communicate that. This is a need I have. This is a want I have, rather than I don't want you to do that. And that can help get your needs and wants met much better than why are you doing that? Why are you avoiding me? Why are you excluding me? So we're going to introduce you to another couple of things. Just conversion. A lot of people. I was not done with that yet. I'm trying to move ahead. So, conversion. Conversion is defined loosely because there's a lot of different definitions for it. Positive feelings associated with watching others be happy, most often related to watching your partner be happy with someone else within non-monogamy. But this can also look like being excited for a coworker who got a promotion, a friend whose favorite video game just came out with a sequel, or a sibling who got their dream car. These aren't things that benefit you directly, but you're happy for their happiness. Some people within the non-monogamy community focus a lot on conversion. It can feel like if you struggle to feel it or don't feel it at all, you're not really poly. Some people naturally feel very compersive. Sometimes it takes a bit to work through their feelings to find your way to being able to feel conversion. And others never find it. But that doesn't mean that they don't want their partners to be happy with their other partners. And also feeling conversion doesn't mean that you don't feel other things. It's not an either or. Most of the time we feel many things at once. So you can feel conversion and envy, even jealousy to a degree, at the same time. So through our work, we've identified a lot of tripping hazards, and we're giving you a few of those because these often come up within jealousy. Special things. That's a trap. You focus on a place, an act, an activity, a holiday, a type of date that they can't do with other people to feel secure in your relationship or in your connection. For example, one of my partners makes amazing cocktails. He's created several cocktails that are inspired by different partners. I'm not gonna tell him not to make a cocktail he's like designed for me to my palate for another person. They're really freaking delicious. They may not want that because it's designed for my palate in particular. But I'm not gonna tell him not to do that because he gets so much joy out of making those things for other people. That's a really innocuous example, but it comes into play in a lot of different ways in our lives. Someone doesn't own activities. So you may create an agreement to limit certain things, but look at why you're limiting them. Is it because you're trying to avoid feeling bad or making someone else jealous? People often try to legislate away emotional connections with others when first opening up. It sounds easy. Don't fall in love with other people. People don't work that way. You can't help developing emotions. You can't help developing feelings. Not naturally. Okay, the first time. Now this is a big one for a lot of people. This is where both and comes into play a lot. Things like trying a new restaurant, going on a new activity, new hobby, new position. You'll engage in the activity in a different way than they will because you're you. They're them. It's always going to be different and unique. If you start focusing on how similar everything is together, then you're always going to not measure up to the other person. You're always going to play the comparison game and you're always going to fail at it because you're you. They're them. You're not the same you. And it sounds like a platitude, but it is true. When someone has specific interests, they may want to engage in those activities with many of their partners. This isn't just sexual, but it does apply there. If you're on a date with your partner and you're ruminating on what they're doing with you, but also thinking about what they're doing with other partners, you're bringing those other people into your date or into the bedroom. And unless that's your kink, that's not really it makes it hard to focus on what you're doing with that person in front of you and to really enjoy that connection, and that's fine.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about where your jealousy might come from. Yeah. Right? Start that jealousy early. So one of the earliest places that jealousy comes from is your family dynamics, right? So if you were in competition with your siblings quite often, you might bring that feeling of competition forward into your adulthood. And now you're in competition sometimes with your partner, but a lot of times also with your metamor. And that doesn't always feel good if you're comparing yourself to your metamor or comparing the things that you're getting to the metamor. If you were in a golden child with a narcissistic family or a black sheep, you might feel a lot of feelings of superiority or inferiority that can get infringed upon when you get into relationships, and now you're dealing with other people in that relationship. Sometimes what happens is you get one parent wasn't there, or maybe both parents wasn't there. And this doesn't necessarily mean like a parent intentionally neglected you. Sometimes your parents have to work, or they travel a lot, or maybe one of them passed away. This can lead to a lot of fears around abandonment. And then you run into problems with abandonment later in your life, where you worry that you're not going to have access to a resource that, wasn't there for you quite often as a child. That's another place this often comes up. Sometimes you'll also see a lot of favoritism in blended families. Stepchildren come in and, the step-parent favors their own children. So you'll end up also seeing a lot of competition happening there, or that fear that you're losing a resource, right? You might feel like you're losing your own parent to someone else, right? Their new spouse. And that can feel really terrible. And you can grow up with that. Bullying in school is kind of the last one where, you might be fine getting stuff at home, like your home life's pretty good, but you get bullied a lot at school, because you stand out or whatever reason. And getting that, you always might feel some level of inferiority. So you go into later in life and now you're worried that you're never going to fit in. I'm never going to fit in with the polycule. I'm never going to fit in with the cool kids in the group. And so that follows you around for a while. The next place that this can come from, and I hope other people are tracking like I am, to understand that. But the next place that this can come from is in previous relationships you might have had. And one thing I want to say about this that inevitably comes up is I hear this word gaslighting get used a lot. And I like to be, one of the things that I like to do in therapy is really make sure people understand where they are making assumptions about what's going on. So people will use this word assuming that they understand the intent of the other person, right? Is to intentionally hurt you or intentionally make you very uncomfortable or drive you crazy. More often than not, most people are just doing the best that they can and are trying to protect themselves. And so, for instance, lying, I see this a lot. Lying ends up being a way to protect yourself, especially if you ended up in one of those families that had neglect going around or loss of resources, then you might start to see lying as a way to protect yourself. And that is very different from intentionally lying to someone to hurt them or to manipulate them in that way. So I like to make sure that people understand the difference between someone who's doing that to protect themselves and someone who's doing that to hurt you, right? And you often can't tell the difference. It's very difficult to tell the difference. So you got to be careful with that. But that doesn't mean the lying doesn't hurt you, right? It hurts you either way, whether it's intentional or not. So there's also understanding the impact of what those behaviors are doing to you. So if you're in a relationship with someone who has betrayed you or lied to you repeatedly, regardless of the reason why they've done it, you are likely to develop difficulty dealing with this. And you're going to start getting hyper vigilant around like, are they lying? Are they lying? Are they lying? Are they lying? And that's going to follow you into future relationships pretty well. So you really have to pay attention to what you're starting to hyper focus on. People will hyper focus on negatives or places in the relationship where things aren't working before they will focus on the places where things are working. And you have to be really careful to make sure, like, is this coming from a past relationship and a bad thing in a past relationship, or does this actually exist in this relationship? And am I just missing all the good that is actually in this relationship? And another place that this can happen is with friends, right? You have friends that maybe you grew up with or have had that have betrayed you as well. And even though they're a friend, that doesn't mean you don't have an attachment to them. You will find that that fear can translate into your relationships as well, or your relationships with your metamour or other people in your community. The final place that this comes up is if you get betrayal or lying in your current relationship. I've watched a lot of people try to open up their relationships from cheating. This happens a surprising amount of the time. And the problem with that is you've got to repair the cheating first, right? You've got to make a lot of repair. And people don't really know what repair looks like in a relationship. It's very difficult for them to pinpoint what exactly it is they're trying to repair. So the first thing you've got to talk about is what is it, right? You've got someone who, for instance, cheated, right? We'll take that easy one. And they think that the problem is, the cheater thinks that the problem is that they went out and had sex with someone else. Well, the person who's feeling betrayed, the only problem they actually have is the fact that they were told about it, right? And so if both people are on the wrong page about what the difficulty is, they don't see eye to eye on what it is, then the repair is not going to happen because one person is trying to repair one thing and the other person is trying to repair something completely different. You need to be able to talk about the impact of that betrayal, right? So this can be really difficult if you are the person, for instance, that was cheating. You need to be able to listen to the other person talk about why they are feeling betrayed, what is going on with them without getting completely flooded. And you might get flooded, that's fine, it happens. But you need to be able to eventually sit with it because you've gotten good or not good. You're okay. By the time you come out and say something about it as the cheater, you've already processed a lot of stuff. And now this new person, the person that has been betrayed, is trying to figure out what to do with that information. So they're just starting their journey of processing this. Now, you also have to go through a sincere apology that demonstrates that you understand and that you have remorse for this. That's often very difficult for people, especially because that apology includes often being vulnerable, and vulnerability is very hard to achieve for a lot of people. You now also have to create agreements that allow the betrayed to rebuild trust. And I think this is one of the hardest places. The agreement has to be associated with what the betrayal was, what the betrayal felt like, right? So you pick that up, you say like, okay, now just tell me before you go and have sex with someone, right? So that's the new agreement. And as long as that's happening, you get that repairs them by the betrayed person understanding that you are going to now do this behavior that you're requesting, and you're going to do it over and over and over again. You do have to check in periodically to see what might still be coming up. So, okay, it's been 3 months since everything came out there. What do? We talk about it. We make sure that things feel like they're actually being repaired, right? Does it feel like repair is happening, or do we feel like we are on the wrong page with this? Maybe we need to go back and look at what actually was the betrayal, right? The person who got betrayed may not fully understand what the betrayal was about when it first happened, right? They might have a few things that they've got to pick here, pick here, pick here until it feels good to them. And like I said, sustained change in behavior is what leads to rebuilding that trust, right? You are not, as long as you are insecure in a relationship, you don't feel trust in that relationship. And we go a lot into the different kinds of trust, trusting yourself, trusting your partner, trusting in the relationship. If that trust isn't being rebuilt, you are going to continue to feel jealous no matter what you're doing in your non-monogamy. So you also have to have some grace around the fact that there's probably going to be miscommunication. The English language is not perfect, right? We say things wrong all the time. We had a miscommunication earlier about things, and we were both like, well, that sucks. I guess we're going to do things a different way. And, like we're experts on this, and we still have miscommunication. This is just a part of normal human being. I didn't blame them for it. They didn't blame me for it. We just said, well, that sucks. What do we do now, right? So
a classic example I like to ask people, how do you define the word date?
Uh-huh.
Oh, because I'm getting your definition is drastically different than mine.
Yeah.
And what's entailed in that? What are the expectations of it?
Yeah.
So if you're not using the same language that you're defining with each other, you're going to continue to run into these miscommunications. And even then, even if you're really, really good at communication, like it's your job, you're still gonna do it. The repair, the grace, all of that is the important part.
Yeah. I like the other one, what is sex? Yeah, good luck defining that. We don't have it well defined either. So and then it takes time. It just takes time to repair if you're having a situation like this. When you create rules and agreements and one of them gets broken through miscommunication or through intentional breaking or whatever the reason is, you have to go through this process every time, or there is going to continue to be distrust, insecurity, and therefore jealousy in your relationships. Okay, so like I said, rebuilding trust depends on both people believing that trust can be rebuilt and that people are capable of change and wanting to put the work into change, right? Both people have to buy in to the fact that people can change, right? If you don't let your partner change, you are always going to be jealous of them and have insecurity in a relationship, right? And if someone says you've betrayed them, your first position should be curiosity, not defensiveness. People often go to defensive. My intention was good, right? I didn't mean to hurt you, therefore I couldn't have possibly betrayed you, right? So you have to look at, okay, you're betrayed. I don't want to hurt you, but like, tell me what that looks like for you. What felt like that for you? Let me understand it so that we can be on the same page about it. So you got to see what they feel is the betrayal, even if you don't personally think that's what happened, right? It's not about what you think happened, right? There's a common saying in couples therapy, right? You can be right or you can have a relationship. These are the only two options, right? So one way or the other. And one of the things that I probably see people struggle with the most is trying to trying to get the facts right. They try to get the same page, on the same page about the facts in a situation instead of paying attention to what everyone's feeling in a situation. All right, so I want to go over this nice little graph. I like, they're pretty, pictures are pretty. This is, think of this as the anxiety curve, right? So all the way over here, we've got this line that goes off into space. And we assume once we start feeling anxiety, that our anxiety is just gonna continue to increase until it skyrockets into space or we die of it. Like we're just gonna die if we continue to feel this way. So often when we get to this fight or flight level, what we do to manage our behavior, our jealousy, right, our insecurity or anxiety, right, it's all kind of the same thing. We apply a Band-Aid. So I call these Band-Aid behaviors, right? So you do something to get the anxiety down. So your partner goes out on a date with someone else, you're feeling a lot of anxiety, you're certain this person is 10 times hotter than you and 100 times smarter, and they're gonna take your partner. And so you get this coming up, and then you text your partner to check in and make sure that they're still with you, right? And that's a Band-Aid behavior. Your anxiety comes down a little bit, right? It doesn't come down for long. Maybe you sit there and, okay, they texted you back, I'm good for an hour, and then an hour later, it's coming right back, right? And you get easily re-triggered by this behavior because you're not really dealing with the anxiety itself, right? You're dealing with it in these little tiny chunks. So you end up on this roller coaster. Now, what you want to do is you need to sit with the anxiety and process the emotions. This is different from rumination. We go into rumination a lot more in the class, but rumination is just getting stuck in a narrative that continues on the emotions, and you just go and go and go and go. Sitting with your emotions and processing through them is about making sure that you understand where the jealousy is coming from and what you need to do to move on from the jealousy, right? So the jealousy is coming from a childhood. Okay, I need to go get therapy to deal with my childhood issues. Jealousy is coming from insecurity in the relationship. Maybe I need to ask for a few more things, right? Maybe I'm feeling insecure because I don't feel like I'm getting enough time with my partner. Maybe I need to ask for a little bit more time with them, right? So you've got to sit there. And the funny thing is if you sit there and you process the thoughts and feelings, the anxiety actually comes down until you talk with them, will eventually come down, and you end up resolving the anxiety. You start resolving the insecurity. Either you're figuring out the insecurity within yourself, or you're fixing some of the insecurity in the relationship. Does anyone have questions about this graph?
We're gonna have a lot of time for questions at the
Yeah.
end too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about those Band-Aid behaviors. So those fall under engaging Band-Aids and avoiding Band-Aids. What is a Band-Aid? Not something we just use when we got a cut or a boo-boo. It's often used to prevent hurt or a bad feeling, or to keep those bad feelings from getting worse. Your partner goes on a date, as Karen said, you're really struggling with it. What are the behaviors you choose to engage in that point? Here are some ways that we stay in activation and don't even realize it. So engaging Band-Aids are things that keep us in those feelings that we're trying to actually avoid. They can look like angry texting your partner, stalking the person they're on a date with on social media, creating an emergency out of something that could wait or isn't really a big emergency. Oh no, the washer broke and I have to do laundry for tomorrow. You know that, right? Like you need to come right now and fix it, or need to fix it. Validation seeking from your partner and close friends or other partners. Making threats. If you go out with that person tonight, I will. Keeping score and comparing yourself to others. As I said earlier, no one wins in the comparison game. Please fail that slide. It's really important. So you're creating a you versus them dynamic here. This is how we stay in fight. We know about fight and flight. This is how we stay in fight. Mm-hmm. You're trying to bring your partner back into connection with you. That's what you want. You want to feel connected with them. But the ways that you're doing so can actually be damaging to your dynamic. They can damage their trust in you. They can damage their trust in yourself. And they can also damage their trust in the relationship. So avoiding behaviors or avoiding band-aids, sorry. These are things we do to prevent us from feeling those bad feelings. On the outside, these look like some healing things. They keep you busy, they distract you. The problem lies in not actually examining why you're engaging in the behavior, just engaging in it because you don't want to feel it. Making other dates isn't inherently bad. Oftentimes it's what works for people because our schedules are busy. But if you're making a date with somebody that you're not really interested in, or you're making a date because you want to be busy because your partner has a date, that can be problematic. Oh, especially if it's not something you're interested in. It can also look like turning to alcohol or drugs, withdrawing emotionally, eating to excess, exercising to excess, losing hours or days to video games, not just that first flush when like Tears of the Kingdom or Baldur's Gate just comes out. It's kind of normal, but like losing all of your time, avoiding feeling your feelings by playing video games, by engaging in these behaviors. Or doom scrolling. That's a common one. A lot of people engage. I just lost 3 hours to Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or. But you don't actually get anything out of it in those times. You're just trying to avoid it. So that's how we stay in flight. We're still avoiding those feelings. They're okay to engage in temporarily when you're getting used to a partner being out, new partner, new situation. But when you start staying in them, when you start sticking with those behaviors, when you don't ever resolve the feelings around them, then it becomes a problem, and you're never going to get through that place to be on the other side where you feel like you can actually access joy for them, or just comfort, or enjoy your alone time.
One thing I kind of want to add to that, just to play off the last thing you said, is it's okay if you sit there and you recognize that you're, it's not a food problem. This isn't a feeling betrayed problem. This is something I'm probably going to get over once I have some practice with it. Like, I'm brand new to non-monogamy. My partner's never been out before. I'm feeling a little jealous, a little insecure. Sometimes you can do some of these withdrawing things just to because you just need to go through the practice of seeing them come home a few times, and then you'll trust in the process. But that's more rare, right, to find that kind of thing happening.
Karyn mentioned food. That's your family of origin. Sorry, food therapy speak.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about this is a skill that we like to build for you. How do you negotiate for support around your emotions? So in every relationship, you kind of look at it on a scale of mutuality to independence, autonomy, right? So you, as a dyad, have a choice around how much you want to help support each other and how much you expect each person to take care of their own stuff in that relationship. So this is going to help you navigate, is this something I can ask my partner to help me with, or is this something that I need to work on my own? So take the following into account. How much of your jealousy is coming from your childhood trauma? There's a pretty good chance you need to spend more time working on that on your own than asking your partner. Kind of depends on what it is, and how much your partner is willing to give up their own autonomy for things. How much of it comes from past relationships? How much of it comes from her in this relationship? What capacity does your partner have to hold your emotions, right? If your partner is very busy, has a mentally taxing job, they might not have the emotional bandwidth to hold on to a lot of your jealousy. And that's not that they don't want to necessarily, but they don't have the capacity to spend that much time if you're really, having a hard night. What expectations are reasonable to put on my partner in this situation? And is what I'm asking for in alignment with my values? This can be a hard one. I always, and one of the 101 skills I go through is picking out your values, right? What values do you want moving you forward in non-monogamy? And if you pick out a value like autonomy, is asking your partner to never have overnights so that you can manage your jealousy in line with your value of autonomy? Not really. So you've got to look at your values and make sure that that's in alignment. Now, your partner might, maybe you have, depending on your situation, you might say, do you mind not staying the night at people's houses for 3 months, 6 months while I work on this. They can tell you yes, they can tell you no, right? Your partner has a right to say no to you. You have to decide whether or not you want to be in that relationship if they're saying no to you that often. So this is kind of the place where you've got to figure out how much autonomy is expected, how much mutuality can you rely on to help you get through some things. So if you can learn to take care of your own side of things and manage your own emotions rather than putting it on your partner to take care of them, you actually end up empowering yourself, right? So a lot of people will reach out to their partner to help them manage their emotions, but you're disempowering yourself by doing it that way. So you manage your own stuff, you learn to empower yourself. However, the other side of that is if you're the person that has never asked for help for anything at all, might be good to start learning how to ask for help on occasion so that you can understand what that feels like and understand what it feels to be interdependent. All right. Anything else about this? I think we are at it. Yeah.
People actually do questions on the last slides and you can
Yeah.
have access to the QR code.
Yeah. So that's our website for our therapy practice. And we're often close to full, but if you need a therapist ever, you can email one of us and I will go out and I will find you a poly-friendly therapist.
We will try.
Our
We will
best.
try.
Yeah. We have we have access to a lot more people who have openings and are willing to work with polyamorous people than just trying to Google it yourself. So please do reach out.
There's also a great website called polyfriendly.org that you can find polyfriendly therapists. You can also find doctors listed on there. People choose to put their information on there. And then this is a coupon code. It is Evergreen Hearts, and it's for 20% all of our codes through next Friday. This Friday, next Friday. So you have some time to look at the website. Now, do we have questions?
Thank you so much for your talk. That was lovely. I had a question about one of the engaging Band-Aids. The validation seeking, that seems like it could be reaching out to a friend for support and could be healthy. Can you talk about when it turns into unhealthy versus healthy behavior?
And you're right, it can be healthy. It can be, hey, you tell me that I am, still a good partner, even though I'm feeling jealous. Hey, can you help me feel better about myself in this moment? It's part of the problem becomes every time your partner goes on a date, you have to line up a lot of support around that. It's that tipping point into this is becoming a chronic behavior pattern and chronic seeking of validation. There's nothing wrong with, hey, can you say something nice about me? Hey, I need some support here. Asking and always allowing people to say no, that's that agency part, and allowing them to have their autonomy. Karyn is a little bit more so than this.
Yeah, I think the other big part of this is if this is your only method of regulating, right? You've got a big problem with probably self-criticism or that critical voice in your head is really loud if you're spending a lot of time going out and getting validation from other people. So it's time to work on that self-critical voice in your head rather than keep going to this Band-Aid of other people fixing me, because you're just going to go on a merry-go-round of constantly looking for other people to make you feel better instead of you figuring out how to make you feel better.
This can also look like your partner goes on a date, so you hit the dating apps because you want somebody to chat with and distract you. And that's not inherently bad, but if it's the only way you have to resolve those feelings, if it's your go-to, even if you're saturated, might be time to figure out some other ways to self-soothe, regulate, lean on other people. But yeah, it's when these things become chronic, when these things become the only thing you know how to do to avoid those feelings. Because you're still not feeling the feelings, you're not resolving them. Thank you.
All right, come on up to the microphone.
The
Thank
people
you.
online can't hear if you speak back there.
Okay, so I feel like a lot of the jealousy talks surround like couples who live together. How does it differ for people who are still polyamorous, maybe don't have someone coming home to them? Like, have you seen do you see different kinds of jealousy and how do they handle that?
I don't know that I see different kinds of jealousy necessarily. It ends up being a lot of the same jealousy, like underlying, right? The process is still the same.
It may look different.
Yeah.
Or manifest though.
Yeah.
Like if you have a partner who goes out and comes back to you, you have an ability to resolve those feelings when they come home. You have that time to reconnect. But if they're going out with other partners and then they're going home and you're still home alone, you don't feel like you get that resolution, that reconnection. And so it can be understanding that that night you might not get that reconnection that you're seeking, to you know, feel closer to brain is dropping words, sorry. But it may be that you build in connection points the next day, or you even build in that night a text, hey, I'm home, I love you, I'll talk to you tomorrow, things are great. But it is having conversations about what you need and what the other person can accommodate or is willing to. So it can be very similar, but it's gonna look different because you're not living together. And it may be learning to fill your time with other things that also bring you joy, not as an avoidant thing, but to just have more abundance in your life. When you're stuck in a scarcity mindset, nothing is gonna feel like enough. And so if you start having more abundance in your life, you start accessing the ability to resolve these feelings more as well. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
We do, in a lot of our classes, we make our best attempt to make sure that every poly style, non-monogamy style is included, because we don't think anyone is, I don't even think non-monogamy is better than monogamy, right? It's like, what's right for you? What's the best thing for you? Participate in that way. So we try our best to do, I provided one clear example up here, but like provide a lot of examples so that you can see the different ways that other styles might deal with the problem.
Thank you.
And the other classes we offer jealousy, we offer a non-monogamy 101 that's kind of an overview. We have a safer sex class, how to have those conversations, what the conversations we're going to be having are. There's a metaphor relationships class because that's a fraught topic for a lot of people. There is a boundaries and agreements class. What am I missing? Oh, NRE. Yeah.
Yes, I think I'm doing my dissertation on it.
No, I'm not doing your dissertation.
It's true. Please do my dissertation.
They're the better
All right, come for it.
Okay. So logically, I know my partner is his own person and can do whatever. But for me, like personally in my heart, it still feels like a big betrayal. Sex feels still like a betrayal. And I know that comes from just a lot of just still the old fashioned traditional, like sex is the ultimate betrayal. But any thoughts on like how to calm those feelings? Is it just more of a time thing and just seeing, you know, hearing that they're going, or like what's the good steps to kind of work on that? Because that feels so hard.
Yeah, you're talking about exactly that part of the
Yeah.
curve, right? What are you
Yeah.
doing on that part to get it to come down, right? I always go towards journaling, right?
Okay.
Figure out what your scripts are, what your narrative is around sexist betrayal,
Yeah.
right? So what are my scripts about this? And then write out like, what scripts do I want to have about this?
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of every time you recognize yourself doing one of those scripts, you got to tell yourself one of these scripts over here and kind of counteract it. And you're probably going to have to tell yourself these scripts, the good ones, 5 times. For every one time you've told yourself that other one, then you got a lot of making up to do.
Do you feel like it's helpful for partners to say, hey, I kind of want the details of what happened, or just say like, no, or is that per person, I guess?
No, that's what you
Great
want.
question.
That's per person, okay. All right.
It is per person. Also, comfort levels change and shift as you grow in the relationship, as you adjust, as you adapt. You know, for some people, they never want details. That's icky and terrifying. For some people, from the get, they want details. That's fun. It's titillating. And for a lot of people, their comfort level grows as their partners develop relationships with other people. But also one thing to really keep in mind is, do you have the right to that information? Is the other person that they're having sex with consenting to them telling you that information? And so this is where having conversations with the people you're having sex with about what they're comfortable sharing with your other partners is really important.
And that includes STI status.
Also includes texts. Open phone policies are scary.
Yeah, come on up.
But I have one more thing to say about that, actually. Part of the scripts is also figuring out what story your brain is telling you. You're running a script, but that script is then creating a story in your mind. So journaling about that story, catching that. The earlier you start to catch those stories, I'm running a script, this is the story. You start looking at those other scripts, those replacement scripts. Even if it's just putting them on Post-it notes all around the place. I'm a big fan of Post-it notes. I have some ADHD of things. Yeah, does that?
Yeah. Oh,
We had
one guy over here, yeah.
You gotta check.
The internet.
Awesome.
Hi, thanks for everything that you brought today. I'm prepared. A lot of the advice that I'm hearing tonight is about me and what I can do if I am experiencing jealousy. What advice do you have for someone who may be a partner of someone that is experiencing a lot of these things, that doesn't have a pattern, a path for going over the anxiety curve or scarcity mindset, that sort of thing? Like how to bring that up? Like that partner can't be my therapist. That partner can't, like, how do we bring that up? How do we talk about that from the other side? Is there?
What are you afraid of?
Yeah.
That's jealousy. What are you afraid of? That's how you start the conversation. What is the jealousy telling you? You're afraid of losing. Okay, so how can I help you feel reassured in that relationship? What are those scripts you're running? And how do you communicate those to the other person? A lot of this comes down to communication. Yeah. How do you communicate it? It's not you're doing this behavior and it's causing me to feel this way. It's I'm feeling this way. I'm scared. I'm hurting. I'm afraid I'm gonna lose you. And being able to sit with that fear and talk about that fear and bring it into the room instead of trying to shove it in a duffel bag, that pig and stuff in a closet. That's what a lot of people do. Bringing it into between you without making it the other person's fault or their problem. Because you're requesting their aid in this. You're not demanding it. Does that make sense? Do I make sense of that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think my answer to a lot of things of like, I'm having a problem with my partner is get real curious, right? Get real curious about what they think the problem is. And the more you sit there with curiosity and just ask them question after question, so what does that feel like, right? So can you tell me a little bit more about that thing you just told me? And a little bit more about that? You will solve so many problems just by listening and being curious and not saying anything back to them or just reflecting back to them what they're saying. This is like 90% of therapy right there, right? I get my job doing this stuff. And it does wonders for people, right? It's like magic to just sit and listen to people and be real curious about them. Because we have, as humans, a real problem being curious about other people.
Make a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
And so checking your assumptions. What are you assuming the other person's intent is? Karyn was talking about intent versus impact. Both are important. But if you're assuming the other person's intent and you're ascribing damage to that intent instead of being curious about what they meant with that behavior, with that conversation, with that thing, or even that feeling, then you're not hearing them. You're not going to understand them. And that's what you want to ultimately do. Yes. That's the point of a relationship?
Yep.
Well,
Yep. Awesome.
did that, you feel
Thank
the
you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
So question from the chat. Part one, what are some good coping techniques? And the second part is about feelings versus behavior. So could you describe the difference between jealousy feelings and jealousy behaviors and why, or if it's okay to feel the feelings while at the same time avoiding jealousy actions that damage relationships?
Okay, yeah.
That's not me. That's you.
That was you?
No, that's my part.
That's good.
So let's break that into two parts. The
Right.
first part is coping skills. One of the biggest ones, therapy. But therapy's not financially accessible by everyone. And so journaling actually is. And journaling does not have to look like, okay, I felt this thing, I'm gonna write an entire page about this feeling. Journaling can be bullet points. It can be poetry. It can be songs. It can be anything that helps get out what's inside you so you can look at it externally. It can be drawings. I know people who doodle their journaling because that they can relate to that better. Breathing. I love breathing techniques. I teach them all the time. But learning to sit in your body so the feeling doesn't become so big and so scary you shut down. I do a lot with polyvagal theory, and that's how do we move through fight, flight, fawn, freeze, and into safe connection with others. And it's breathing resolves a lot of that, but if you're not used to practicing breathing when you're calm, when you're activated, you're not gonna know what that feels like. You're gonna be like, why the fuck is this breathing technique working for me? I'm still activated. Well, because we still don't know what calm feels like.
Yeah. But I mean, just some simple somatic stuff you can do is put a ice pack on the back of your neck, right? Really bring your temperature down. It brings your heart rate down. Your anxiety will come down. So there's even just some basic somatic things that you can do to help you in these moments, at least come down enough to be able to start listening to your thoughts, right? Often when you're elevated like this, your thoughts are racing, your feelings are right there, and you can't pull apart, and we'll talk about this, you can't pull apart thoughts and feelings, right? And so then you might automatically react. So doing some of these things can bring you down enough to be able to really start examining what's going on in your head.
You can also put a cold can of soda on your chest right here. That one's a really great calming technique. It's a DBT skill called TIP. It uses temperature. There's another one called if you're really panicking or anxiety response so bad that you're thinking you're going to pass out, you can engage something called the mammalian dive reflex, which is putting your face into a bowl or a sink of cold water. Please don't breathe in. That's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. But you reset your nervous system that way. It can actually shock you out of that anxiety response. And you're still going to have to resolve the feelings, but it starts to give you space to be able to do that. Oh, walking.
Walking is great. You get bilateral stimulation going with that one.
But you can also do tapping, like just even tapping like this. Sorry, my neck was loud. Or tapping your legs in time with a song you really enjoy, especially if it's a slower one that uses bilateral stimulation and it can help slow your nervous system down. So some of these are ways to calm your nervous system to a point where you actually can start to differentiate between thoughts, feelings, emotions, things like that. Behaviors. Yeah, those things are important.
I know just to get to the second part, or you feel like you're done? Yeah, the second part is a lot of people I know have this sensation of like, I feel a feeling, I've got to engage the behavior, right? It's like very automatic. And it can be really hard to start slowing yourself down enough. So you've got to practice these things when you're not activated, right? So thoughts, right? Feelings, two separate things. You got to start by separating your thoughts from your emotions, right? Your thoughts are the narrative that happens. Your emotions is just the, am I happy? Am I sad? Right? And you'll find that your thoughts reinforce your emotions a lot of the time. Or maybe a thought comes up and you get an emotion and then you have a thought and you start spiraling, right? This is how rumination works. And so once you start to separate those two out from each other, you can start to separate the behaviors out, right? So you feel a thing, I'm feeling a thing, I have a choice to stand here and not do anything about it, or I have a choice to engage in some predetermined behavior that I probably learned in, second grade, right? So you've got to really start separating those out. I don't know if that really answers the question of difference between behaviors and feelings.
Feelings are a chemical response in your body that can be resolved.
Yeah.
Thoughts, that's okay, you think? But they're also patterns that your brain plays out. And that's why it's so easy to get caught in rumination in these cycles. Your brain's like, oh, yes, that's a thing. That thing is dangerous. That thing is going to kill me. Oh, God, I'm going to die. Wait, no, I didn't die. Wait, no, I'm going to die. Wait, no, I didn't die. Wait, no, I'm going to. And then your anxiety keeps your body's still dumping cortisol and adrenaline into your system because your thoughts are saying, I'm in danger. I'm in danger. I'm in danger. If you start catching those thoughts before they start spiraling and interrupt them and engage in behaviors that are not reinforcing the thoughts, coping skills, breathing, walking, things like that, then you can start to also change the thought pattern. You're disrupting that pattern that your brain is engaging in. Do I make sense with that? I say that a lot, not because I think people can't understand me, but because I really question whether or not I'm making sense.
Yeah. Did that answer the question?
There was a follow-up question to that,
Yeah.
which is, it's pretty straightforward. Is it okay to feel jealousy? We're not trying to avoid it, right?
Yeah, absolutely okay to feel jealousy, 100%. I am not normally a jealous person. It very rarely comes up, and I certainly felt jealousy when I first opened up my relationship. I was all new. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was like, what is this? It is totally normal to feel jealousy.
And it's okay to feel jealousy. That doesn't mean you have to act on the feeling.
Yeah.
And if you're always feeling jealousy about lots of things, not just your relationships, but a lot of things, maybe working on figuring out why, because often understanding the where it comes from can help you feel less of it. There are some people who never get to a place of not feeling any jealousy, but they manage it and they don't make it their other partner's problems. And their partners, they can still have healthy relationships. And when you don't do anything about it, or you're always trying to offload the work to somebody else to modify their behaviors so you don't have to grow.
Being jealous is not an indicator that you are not polyamorous. As in that these two things are very separate things.
Follow to follow?
Yeah.
There is one more. I'm asking them to rephrase it.
Okay. Do you want to come up and ask yours real quick then? Thanks.
Do you have tips for not, or maybe a little context, like as I think a very like empathetic feeler, do you have tips for giving your partner that space to feel jealousy or feel anxiety without getting wrapped up in their feelings as well? Or like, you're about to go out into the world, but they're feeling jealous, but you'd like to go out into the world, etc.
I think this one could be solved by agreements, good agreements. Like if you know you're getting, like there is a jealousy thing going on, you make an agreement when the person is not in the midst of the jealousy to behave in a certain way. Like if I'm about ready to go on a date and you're feeling jealous, then I am not leaving late for my date. And we both have to agree to that, right? So something like that, you then give yourself permission to go do the thing, right? And then they know, okay, I've agreed to this, right? So I need to go and deal with my feelings on my own, right? This can be a difficult one for people because often when they're in that moment, they want to change the agreements all of a sudden, but that's a whole separate class, right? So, but that is one way to manage that.
Another is to figure out why you feel it's your responsibility to manage their emotions. Where did that come from? And that's individual work to start separating your need for control, because often that's what it is. I need to control the situation so I'm not in danger, or I need to help my partner resolve their feelings because if I don't, then they're going to leave me. So it can be two different things, but often it's a fear of something, a fear of loss of control, a fear of loss of the relationship, or you were maybe a parent by kids, you had to raise your siblings or you had to raise your parents, and you don't know how to let other people feel their feels without it being your responsibility to fix their feels, because if you didn't, you weren't saying that. So a lot of this does come down to family of origin work. What scripts were you taught as a child that are running in the background as you're engaging in this adult relationship? Or maybe in a prior relationship too.
First of all, I did not sign up for therapy tonight. No, that was great. Secondly, is there a way to get these slides?
Yeah, you can probably put the slide somewhere.
Yeah, if I email William, if I email you a link, can you email it out to the attendees?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, question.
Oh, yeah. Actually, did the person?
You answered their question with a
Okay.
different one. so.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna get a little vulnerable. So I'm a very new solo poly person. So with the person who mentioned about what are the struggles that solo poly people face, I'm like, I have one in mind. So I guess the struggle that has come up that's like, I didn't think it was connected to jealousy, but I can kind of see it now after hearing y'all speak on it. It's like both insecurity and jealousy around two of my partners who are not fully out and open as poly. And that's pretty scary for me because I am somebody who's really prideful and pretty much out to like most people in my life about being solo polyamorous and all that. So I guess I've been struggling with figuring out how to navigate that. And I think with a lot of reflection, I've realized that like, I want to honor them with where they're at. And I don't ever at all want to like, for example, force anybody to like be fully out or out at all about being polyamorous. Cause I know there's a historical stigma, discrimination against poly non-monogamous people. And I'm very like attuned to that sociopolitically in so many ways, but it can feel really shitty, like feeling like I have to, like, we have to hide a relationship in certain contexts. We have to keep it a secret in certain context. So any advice around that would be really helpful for me as a new solo poly person.
That's a really hard place to be. It's hard to feel like you're being shoved back in the closet they're in that you already came out of. Some of that does sound actually like envy. You want to be able to do things with them. Not that you don't want them to do those with other people because they're not doing them with other people, but you want to be able to do those with them. And envy is a thing of, it can be hard to resolve in this because it's a very difficult place to resolve it. You can't change their comfort level. You have to adjust your comfort level with it. It's trying to meet them where they're at and creating places where maybe you can be out together. You know, are there places they're comfortable being out? Is that something that you absolutely need in your relationships? Because if it is, and they can't provide that, is that the right relationship for you?
Just because you're in love doesn't mean you're compatible.
Yeah. That doesn't conquer all, and the people fly. Love and harmony. You need communication and compatibility.
NRE is not compatibility.
NRE is a really fun chemical cocktail, though.
It's a lot of fun.
Do you have any other questions, curiosities, concerns? This is some concerning stuff. It's scary. Do we have any other questions online?
Awesome. Thank you all. Appreciate coming out and watching us ramble on for a while.